I didn't know retirement could feel like rejection. I used to think retirement would feel like freedom, like a long, slow exhale after decades of showing up, putting in the hours, being responsible. I imagined quiet mornings with coffee, books I never had time to read, maybe a few trips with my wife, more time with the grandkids. I thought the pace of life would slow down, sure, but I never expected it to stop so suddenly, and I definitely didn't expect how hollow it might feel. No one warned me that stepping away from work could feel like being quietly erased. There wasn't a dramatic moment, no announcement that said, "You're no longer needed." But that's what it felt like. One day, I was the go-to guy, making decisions, solving problems, surrounded by people who respected what I had to offer. The next day, it was like I had vanished. The phone stopped ringing. The emails disappeared. The routine I had leaned on for decades just evaporated. And here's the strange part, I wasn't sad at first. I thought this was just the adjustment period. I'd earned this rest, right? I had spent years providing, contributing, showing up. But slowly, this new life didn't feel like rest anymore. It felt like rejection, not the loud kind, not the kind that comes with slammed doors or angry words. This was the soft, quiet kind, the kind where people stop asking for your opinion, stop inviting you in, stop remembering what you once did. And I started to wonder, without work, without purpose, without my name on an office door or a calendar full of meetings, who exactly was I now? It wasn't just about staying busy. It was about feeling useful, feeling seen, feeling like I still mattered in a world that moved on without me. And when you've spent your whole adult life being defined by what you do, losing that title, retiree or not, can feel like losing a piece of your identity. Maybe more than just a piece. I didn't expect to feel this way. I didn't expect retirement to be lonely or strange, or filled with silent mornings where I wondered, is this it? But I've come to learn something important, something that I think someone out there needs to hear. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're not weak. You're just human. And like many of us, you're still figuring out what this next chapter means. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not just retirement as a milestone, but as a transition that's deeper than we let on. A shift not just in schedule, but in soul. And maybe, just maybe, it's not rejection, after all, but a quiet invitation to rewrite who we are and who we still want to be. The day of my retirement party, people smiled. There was cake, there were speeches, and they gave me one of those plaques you hang on the wall that no one really looks at. I smiled too. I meant it. I was proud of what I had built, proud of the years I had given, the team I'd mentored, the long nights that eventually meant something. I shook hands, laughed at the jokes about finally getting to sleep in, and nodded when someone said, "You're going to love the quiet." And then the next morning came. Quiet, all right, but not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of quiet that made me feel like the air had gone out of the room. My alarm didn't go off. My phone didn't buzz. The calendar was blank. There was no urgency, no chaos, no direction. For the first time in decades, I had nowhere I needed to be, and no one expecting me. At first, it felt like a relief, like I'd been given permission to breathe, but then that breath just hung there, and another one came, and another, and eventually, it wasn't freedom anymore. It was absence, a kind of floating, like when you stay in bed too long and the day forgets to start. No one talks about that. No one says that after you walk out of the office for the last time, you don't just lose your job. You lose a rhythm, a relevance, a sense of being counted on. For years, people needed me. Now, even I wasn't sure I did. I found myself doing small things just to feel on task. Organizing drawers that didn't need organizing. Rereading manuals. Checking the weather 3 times a day. At the grocery store, I'd strike up conversations with cashiers just to feel some kind of interaction. My wife noticed. She never said it, but I could feel it. The way she paused before asking me what I planned to do with the day. The way she tried to find gentle ways to say, You can't just wander around the house like a ghost. And it's not that I missed the job itself. It wasn't about the meetings or the spreadsheets. It was that the job gave me a framework, a reason to get up, a sense that I was still contributing to something bigger than me. Retirement took that from me, and no one prepared me for that part. They all said congratulations, but no one said, this next part might be harder than you think. That's what I mean by the applause fading. Because when the celebration ends, what's left isn't confetti, it's silence. And the silence asks a dangerous question. Are you still valuable? If no one claps for you anymore, I used to believe that age came with respect, that getting older meant you had earned your place, that wisdom mattered more than speed, that life experience held weight. I was wrong, or at least I was overly hopeful. What I've learned since retiring is that society doesn't push you out with force. It just stops opening the door. It starts small. People don't mean to do it, I don't think. But you start to notice things. You're sitting at a dinner table with your kids and their friends, and they're talking about apps and startups and trending things. And suddenly, your words feel heavy, like they belong to another time. You try to offer advice, a story from your life that connects, but it's met with polite nods or glazed over eyes. You're not excluded, not really. You're just invisible. You go to the bank, and they suggest you do everything online. You say you'd rather speak to someone, and they smile kindly, like you're a child who doesn't understand. In the waiting room at the doctor's office, a younger patient is called first, even though they came after you. You say something, and the receptionist apologizes, but doesn't look you in the eye. You get talked over in conversations. Your voice drops in volume because you're not sure anyone's listening. You offer to help with something, moving a box, fixing a shelf, planning a family event, and they say, you don't have to worry about it. Just relax, as if relaxing is all you're good for now. And then there's work, the place you used to be somebody. I bumped into a former co-worker at the store one afternoon. She said the team was doing great. They'd hired someone new to take over my role. She's young, really sharp, she added almost offhandedly. I nodded, smiled, said I was happy to hear that. But deep down, something sank. She didn't mean harm. But the message was clear. We've moved on. That's what makes this kind of rejection so strange. It's quiet. No one says, we don't need you. They just forget to ask. They forget to call. They forget to make space. And slowly, you begin to feel like your season has ended, like your presence is more nostalgia than necessity. And let me be honest, it hurts. Not in a dramatic way, not like heartbreak or loss. It's more like erosion, a slow wearing away of visibility, of importance, of voice. And you wonder, is this just what getting old means now? Watching the world speed up while you stand still? But I don't believe it has to be that way. Not entirely. There's a difference between being retired and being discarded, between slowing down and being silenced. But to fight that difference, you have to first name it. You have to be brave, enough to say, this feels like rejection. And from there, well, maybe we can start to reclaim what's been slipping away. I didn't set out to reinvent myself. That kind of language felt too flashy for someone in their 70s. Reinvention sounded like something people did in their 30s when they quit a job and moved across the country. But then again, rejection has a funny way of forcing your hand. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It just keeps showing up until you either retreat or respond. For a while I retreated. I stayed home. I said no to things. I convinced myself I was tired, even when I wasn't. That I preferred the quiet, even when I didn't. But the truth was, I was just scared. Scared I no longer had a place in the world I used to move through with ease. And for a lot of people my age, that fear turns into isolation. We convince ourselves the world doesn't care anymore, and then we stop caring too. But something small started to shift the day I helped a neighbor carry her groceries inside. Nothing dramatic, just a simple offer, a quick exchange. She thanked me and smiled, really looked at me, and for the first time in weeks I felt useful. not out of pity, not as someone trying to stay busy. I just felt helpful, present, seen. That moment stayed with me. So I started leaning into that feeling. I began walking more, not because I needed the exercise, though that helped, but because I wanted to see people. I volunteered once a week at the local food pantry. The first time I showed up, I felt awkward, like a misplaced file. But then someone asked me to sort cans. Another asked if I could lift a box. Slowly, the hesitation melted. I became part of something again. It didn't stop the world from moving fast. It didn't change the fact that technology often left me in the dust, or that people still forgot to call. But it reminded me that worth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet persistence of showing up anyway. And I started doing more than just filling time. I took up watercolor, something I hadn't tried since I was a teenager. The first painting was awful, so was the second. But the third, it made me feel something. That I could still create, that I still had beauty inside me trying to get out. I joined a walking group. I had lunch with other retirees who also missed being needed. We talked about the strangeness of this season of life, the grief that no one warns you about, and the odd little joys that sneak in when you least expect them. And eventually, I began to understand something I hadn't seen clearly before. Retirement doesn't erase your identity, but it does invite you to examine it. Strip away the title, the routine, the status, and what's left. That's where the reinvention begins. Not in becoming someone else, but in remembering who you are when no one is watching. It's not about pretending you're young again. It's about refusing to disappear. You see, rejection is only the end if we stop looking for what comes next. I didn't know I had more chapters to write, but I do. And so do you. They might not be filled with promotions or packed calendars or applause, but they can be filled with meaning, with contribution, with presence, and maybe most importantly, they can be filled with dignity, because that's something no one can take from you unless you let them. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that retirement was a finish line, a place we'd run toward, earn through hard work, and finally collapse into with a sigh of relief. But no one really told us what it would feel like to stop running, to stand still, to watch the world go on without us while we try to figure out where we now belong. What I've come to understand is this: retirement isn't rejection, not unless we let it become that. It can feel like it, yes. It can feel like fading, like being set aside, like becoming unnecessary. But beneath that ache is something quieter and deeper, an opportunity to reconnect with yourself, to build something new, to speak not for approval, but for truth. You are not invisible. You are not useless. You are not in life's waiting room. Maybe you're just between chapters. And here's what I wish someone had told me the day I walked out of that office for the last time. You still matter. You still carry wisdom the world needs. You still have mornings to wake up to, hands to hold, moments to shape. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone to clap. Start again, on your terms, paint badly, volunteer imperfectly, laugh awkwardly in a room full of strangers. Call someone just because. Read the book. Start the journal. Walk even if you don't know where it leads. Trust that showing up is enough. And remember, your story didn't end at retirement. It simply changed tempo. You're not done yet, not by a long shot.